Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating guide that serves as a literal blueprint for building a safe, harmonious, and respectful society. And we're looking specifically at an island nation, the Maldives. Now, think of nation building a lot like architecture, right? You can't just slap a roof on and expect the whole thing to hold up. You absolutely need a solid foundation, really strong pillars, and deeply interconnected systems. The Maldives has this incredibly unique geographic spread, over 1,000 beautiful but frankly isolated coral islands, which presents a massive logistical challenge for this kind of societal construction. Okay, let's dive into this master plan and see exactly how it's all laid out.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to move through 5 crucial sections. First, the anatomy of crime. Second, the economic foundation. Third, communities and leadership. Fourth, strengthening law enforcement. And finally, a vision for harmony.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the anatomy of crime.
To start building our nation, we really have to understand what tears it down. Taking a systems thinking approach, the guide hits us right away with this incredibly powerful premise. Crime does not arise from a single cause. It's a really short sentence, but man, it completely reframes the whole problem. Crime isn't just some standalone event out of nowhere. It's actually a symptom that requires a very specific, compounding environment to take root and really thrive within a community.
Let's move to these steps and see exactly how this builds into a pretty dangerous chain reaction. Step 1 begins with economic hardship and unemployment. Naturally, that creates friction, right? Then we hit Step 2. When people are looking for a way out, but they just keep hitting walls of biased hiring and nepotism, well, that initial frustration turns into deep, deep resentment. Enter Step 3. If leadership is corrupt and abuses its authority, the social contract is completely broken at that point. And finally, Step 4, you combine all of that with weak law enforcement, and you've got the absolute perfect breeding ground for crime. It's literally a cascade of systemic failures.
Which brings us to Section 2, the economic foundation.
So if crime is this cascade of failures starting with economic hardship, our architectural foundation absolutely must be robust economic opportunity. Without it, the entire structure of the nation is compromised from day one. To really understand the Maldives, you have to picture its unique geography. There is a stark contrast happening here. On one side, you've got the heavily centralized capital hub of Malé, and on the other, you have these sprawling outer islands. The blueprint emphasizes shifting the focus away from Malé to drastically reduce that inequality. It's calling for active development of tourism, fisheries, agriculture, and the digital economy out in those outer islands, all backed up by accessible microfinance. This deliberate decentralization is absolutely key to preventing the kind of centralized frustration that eventually triggers crime.
And a massive part of this economic foundation focuses specifically on the youth. There are 4 distinct pathways mapped out here. The guide proposes some really concrete steps: creating apprenticeships in resorts and boatyards, offering highly targeted training in ICT and construction, and this is huge, aligning all that vocational training with actual real-world job market needs. They also strongly advocate for island-level entrepreneurship programs. You see, when young people have localized, real opportunities to build a solid life, the societal friction drops dramatically.
But creating jobs isn't really enough if getting those jobs isn't actually fair. This is where we get into the essential principle of merit-based hiring. This means completely transparent recruitment across government bodies, state-owned enterprises, councils, and resorts, complete with independent oversight to totally shut out political hiring and nepotism. So the crucial point is this: the public disclosure of scoring and selection criteria. When the whole process is out there and entirely visible, fair opportunity acts as the ultimate preventative measure against resentment.
Moving right along to Section 3, communities and leadership.
Okay, so now that we've got an economic foundation poured, it's time to actually raise the walls of our nation. And these walls rely on 2 opposing but totally complementary forces. You've got grassroots community respect pushing up and uncompromising leadership integrity holding everything together from the top. I really want to pause on this exact quote directly from the source material. When leadership is fair and dependable, society becomes stable and crime decreases naturally. It just perfectly anchors this whole segment. Leaders can't just enforce the law. They really have to model honesty, fairness, and true service to the people. Honestly, that's the only way to establish real societal trust.
And of course, modeling honesty requires some pretty strict rules. The blueprint dictates a strict zero-tolerance policy for corruption. We're talking mandatory asset declarations for leaders, completely independent bodies to investigate any complaints against officials, and really robust whistleblower protection laws. And pay attention to this idea of implementing digital procurement systems. By heavily reducing the manual handling of money and documents, digital systems act as a brilliant automated safeguard against the misuse of power.
Now, while we have those top-down rules for leaders, we also desperately need bottom-up efforts from the community itself. Building grassroots respect starts really early. The blueprint suggests school curricula focused heavily on civic responsibility, setting up community mediation centers to resolve local disputes peacefully, empowering women's committees, and establishing neighborhood watch programs. It's really all about teaching empathy and conflict resolution right there at the local island level. That's what weaves a much tighter, more resilient social fabric.
Let's jump into Section 4, Strengthening Law Enforcement.
You know, even the most beautifully designed and well-built house still needs a security system. Policing a nation of scattered islands is, as you can imagine, incredibly complex. But the technology proposed here brilliantly illustrates how the Maldives plans on overcoming those massive geographic challenges. The guide calls for CCTV networks in remote island harbors, body cameras for officers out on patrol, and fully digital case management systems. It also really highlights the need for specialized units dealing with things like domestic violence, drugs, and cybercrime, ensuring that even the most remote islands have access to high-level professional policing.
But actually catching an offender? That's really only step one. To maintain public trust, you need a totally seamless justice chain. We're talking about a rapid timeline here, from the initial police investigation on day one to swift prosecutor processing in week one, leading to a prompt court resolution in month one. Now, to achieve that kind of rapid coordination across vast ocean distances, the blueprint heavily emphasizes shared databases for criminal records and highly integrated national watch lists. Speed and flawless communication between agencies are absolutely vital here.
Ultimately, though, the law only works if literally everyone is subject to it. As the overarching principle states, there must be equal enforcement for all, regardless of status, wealth, or political influence. By standardizing procedures across every single island, it ensures the law acts as a universal protection for everybody. That kind of consistency is the absolute cornerstone of public trust.
And finally, Section 5, a vision for harmony.
We have officially reached the final piece of our architectural structure, the roof. A truly harmonious culture requires a lot of proactive care and a strong sense of shared responsibility. This means providing easily accessible mental health counseling services directly out on the islands, running early intervention and mentorship networks for at-risk youth, and funding community-based rehabilitation for drug users. It also means actively promoting national days that celebrate unity, diversity, and peaceful coexistence. Harmony just naturally grows when people feel actively supported and deeply valued by their community.
Which brings us right to the core philosophy of this entire blueprint. A nation becomes stronger when fair opportunities meet mutual respect. Now, what's really interesting about this idea is how it perfectly distills all those massive, complex systems into two simple, actionable concepts. The economic foundations and anti-corruption laws, those provide the fair opportunities. The community programs and dependable leadership, they foster the mutual respect. When those two crucial elements intersect, crime decreases naturally and trust grows for generations to come.
We've looked pretty closely at the blueprint for the Maldives today, but honestly, these principles of structural nation building are completely universal. So I want to leave you with this final thought to consider. If you mapped out your own society's blueprint, look closely at the interconnected systems all around you. Are you building on a solid foundation of mutual respect and fair opportunity? Or is your community missing a crucial pillar? Take a look around and really think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.